Eli Mercer woke to a soft, unfamiliar hum. The ceiling above him was smooth and pale, glowing with a light that seemed alive, pulsing gently in rhythm with his own heartbeat. For a moment, he wasn't sure where he was. The walls curved in ways that made him feel like he was inside a giant shell, floating silently in the depths of space. Everything smelled faintly of metal and warmth. The scent was not unpleasant. It reminded him of mornings at home on Earth, of a kitchen sunlit by the early rays, and the quiet sound of his sister humming while making breakfast. He tried to sit up, but his body refused. His muscles felt like wet noodles, his bones heavy and brittle. A wave of panic rose in his chest, but before it could grow, a calm, melodic voice spoke from beside him. "Easy," the voice said. It was soft, smooth, and somehow carried a gentle amusement. "You are safe." Eli's eyes flicked to the source. Sitting beside his bed was a creature that made him want to smile and also step back at the same time. It had delicate features, taller than a human, with skin that shimmered faintly like glass dust in sunlight. Its eyes were large and luminous, not threatening, but not exactly friendly in a human way either. The creature's hands, slender, tipped with slightly longer nails than humans would have, were folded neatly on its lap. It wore a uniform of soft white fabric, functional but elegant, without seams or buttons as Eli knew them. Where am I?" Eli asked, his voice hoarse. It sounded small, even to him. "You are in the station," the creature said. Its voice carried no accent Ellie could recognize, but he somehow understood every word perfectly. "You were brought here for recovery after the transit." Transit? Ellie's head throbbed. Hyperspace, I think. He tried to focus, to remember, but images floated hazily in his mind. Lights, alarms, a sudden pull, like being underwater then. Nothing. The creature nodded.
"Yes, the hyperspace journey."
"It was not easy on your system. Your neural network experienced temporary instability. You may feel weak." It tilted its head slightly, a motion that made Eli feel watched but not judged. "But that is normal." Eli's lips parted. "You speak English?" He tried to smile. It came out more like a grimace. "I speak what you need to understand," it said simply, as if that explained everything. Then, after a pause, it added softly, "I am Nerith. I am assigned to care for you." Eli tried to nod, but his neck protested. His body was foreign to him, slow and heavy in ways he did not remember being. "Mercer," he said.
"Eli Mercer," Nerith inclined her head. "Eli Mercer."
"Very well. We will start slowly."
Her hands moved, but she did not touch him. Instead, she adjusted a panel on a device next to the bed, which hummed and clicked softly. A screen lit up, showing graphs of his vitals, heart rate, neural activity, muscle response. Everything seemed stable, if a little weak. Eli found himself staring at the lines, feeling like a lab rat. But the creature sitting beside him, its calm presence, made him hesitate to panic. "I feel strange," Ellie admitted. "Weak. Dizzy? Like..." He waved his hands vaguely, like, "My body doesn't belong to me." "You are correct," Nerith said. "Your body is adjusting." "This is not unexpected. Your species is fragile during transitions between systems." "But you will heal," Eli frowned. Fragile? He had survived space travel, or at least he thought he had. The word made him feel smaller than he wanted to admit. He looked at Nerith's face again. Her eyes were bright, but not human bright. They were like lanterns that could see things he could not. He swallowed hard. "And will it hurt?" "No," she said. "Not if you do not resist?" Eli blinked. That sounded like an instruction. Not a reassurance, but a rule. He tried to relax. A tiny laugh escaped him, more a cough than anything else. I think resisting is all I know how to do. Nereth's lips curved slightly, though it was not exactly a smile. It was softer, warmer than he expected.
Then we will begin with a test.
You may move your hand. Only your hand.
Slowly, Eli's arm felt heavy. His fingers twitched as though they were awakening from a long sleep. He moved them, testing the motion. Nereth watched quietly, her head tilted, eyes trained on the screen as well as on him. Good, she said. Now, raise it slightly. The muscles protested, a dull ache rippling up his arm. But he succeeded. He grunted, sitting back against the pillows. That's enough for now. Nereth inclined her head again. Enough for now. Rest. And just like that, the day stretched into quiet observation. Nereth did not speak unless necessary. She moved efficiently, adjusting lights, monitoring readings, and sometimes just sitting there, watching him breathe. Eli had not realized how comforting her presence was until he caught himself relaxing entirely for the first time in hours, or was it days? He could not remember. Time had lost its meaning during the trip. Eventually, fatigue pulled at him again, dragging him down into a light sleep. He was aware of Nereth's soft humming as he drifted off, a sound that seemed impossible for such a creature to make. It was musical without melody, soothing without rhythm, a vibration that felt like being wrapped in warmth. Even in the strangeness, Eli felt safe. When he woke, the room was dimmer, the pulsing light slower, calmer. Nereth was beside him, still watching. This time, she spoke without prompting.
You slept longer than expected.
Your recovery is unusual. She tilted her head in a way that made her seem almost curious.
Unusual? Eli asked, trying to sit up again. The effort made his muscles ache.
I'm alive. Yes, she said simply. Alive. Stronger than expected. Eli blinked. It made no sense. His body felt fragile. His mind was foggy. And yet, he was alive, stronger than expected. He wanted to ask why, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he sighed and leaned back. Nereth hesitated for a moment. Then, slowly, carefully, she reached toward him, not to touch him, but to hover her hand just above his. Eli's instincts flared. He expected her to pull back, to follow some rule he didn't understand. Instead, she stayed there. And then, without thinking, Eli reached out his own hand. Trembling slightly, weakly, he placed it over hers. The warmth was strange, unfamiliar, but it made him feel whole. A calm he had not known for hours or days settled over him. His muscles relaxed, his mind cleared, if only a little. Nereth did not move away. She did not speak. She simply held his hand, a gentle weight, steady and alive. Her soft laugh, almost imperceptible, floated into the room.
You held my hand, she said quietly. Eli blinked.
The words seemed ridiculous coming from her, yet they were not. They were exactly what he needed. He wanted to laugh, but all he could do was nod, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. The rest of the day passed like that. No rush, no alarms, no panic. He moved slightly, tested his strength, felt the small triumph of lifting his head. Nereth's presence was constant but unobtrusive. Sometimes she hummed. Ah! Wait! Sometimes she adjusted the lights or the monitors. Sometimes, in quiet moments, they simply sat, hands barely touching, sharing something neither fully understood. By the time the station's artificial evening arrived, Eli felt something he had not expected. He felt human again, not fully, not completely, but enough to believe that he could heal, that he could survive, that he could perhaps thrive. As he drifted off to sleep that night, his hand still resting lightly on Nerith's, he realized that no technology, no protocol, no alien advancement had ever mattered as much as this presence. Attention! Connection. Something so simple that the galaxy might not understand it, yet it was powerful beyond measure. And as the stars shimmered through the station's walls, a pulse of light traveled across space, unseen by anyone else. Eli Mercer was awake. He was alive. And for the first time since leaving Earth, he felt truly, inexplicably, at home. Eli Mercer woke again to the soft hum of the station. The light above him had shifted, pulsing slower than yesterday, casting gentle shadows along the curved walls. His muscles no longer felt like useless weights, though they were still fragile and tender. The haze in his mind had lifted a little, replaced with a quiet curiosity that tugged at him. Nerith was already beside him. She did not move like humans would. There was no fidgeting or restless energy. She simply sat, hands folded neatly on her lap, eyes watching him with a steady focus that made him both nervous and strangely comforted. "You slept well," she said, her voice soft and musical, but carrying no trace of mockery or judgment. "Your vitals indicate improved stability. You are recovering faster than projected."
Eli blinked. "Faster? I feel okay, I guess."
But okay doesn't feel like fast. His lips twisted into a weak smile. Feels like slow death, more like. Nerith's eyes tilted slightly, the closest thing she had to a human expression of amusement. "Your species uses humor, even in discomfort." Noted. Interesting. Eli laughed, though it was soft, shaky, and broken. "Interesting, huh?"
You really are an alien. I'm starting to understand why everyone warned me about this place.
"You were warned?" Nerith asked, tilting her head. She did not sound judgmental. She sounded curious. "Everyone," Eli said, his voice dragging with fatigue. "Back on Earth, they told us stories. Space is vast, cold, and full of things we don't understand. Most of it is true. The rest," he shrugged. "You're living proof." Nerith did not respond immediately. Instead, she extended her hand toward his again. The motion was slow, careful, deliberate. Eli hesitated for a moment. Old instincts told him to resist, to protect himself, but he found himself reaching back, letting his fingers brush against hers. A warmth, subtle but tangible, spread through him. "You held my hand," Nerith said softly, echoing her words from the day before. There was a trace of amusement in her tone, though it remained quiet, delicate. Eli felt a small smile tug at his lips. "Yeah. Seems like I do that a lot. Can't help it." Pew, 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 pew. The hours that followed were a slow rhythm of small movements and careful observations. Nerith encouraged him to lift his arm, to flex his fingers, to shift his weight slightly. Each movement was measured, nothing forced. But Eli noticed something remarkable. His body was responding. Muscles he thought were useless began to work, even if only for a few seconds at a time. His breathing was steadier, his mind clearer. He realized with growing astonishment that the mere presence of Nerith, her attention, her calm, her gentle touch, was making him stronger. Every instinct he had screamed that it was impossible, that aliens were advanced in ways humans could never measure, and yet here he was, improving simply because someone chose to sit beside him. Not because of machines or medicine, but because she cared. By midday, Eli was able to sit upright for longer periods. Nerith adjusted a few monitors, speaking softly as she worked. "Your recovery is being monitored by multiple systems. The rate of improvement is statistically anomalous." Eli tilted his head.
"Statistically, what now? It means that your progress is unusual, unexpected."
Nerith's eyes studied him carefully. No human has recovered this quickly under these conditions before.
Eli frowned.
So why me? Neerath paused. She didn't answer immediately, as if considering how to explain something she might not fully understand herself. Perhaps it is not you alone. Perhaps it is the interaction. Eli's brow furrowed. The interaction? Yes. Neerath's voice was quiet, almost a whisper.
Your species shares strength in ways our data does not account for. You provide comfort.
Stability. Healing. Through presence. Through touch. Through engagement. Eli blinked. Wait. You're saying I'm helping just by being here?
Yes, Neerath said.
Your hand. Your voice.
Your awareness of another being. It is impactful. For a moment, Eli laughed softly, shaking his head in disbelief. I heal faster because I held your hand? Neerath did not respond with humor. She simply nodded. It appears so. Your effect on yourself and on others in this environment is notable. The thought settled in Eli's mind like a spark. Humans had always believed in the power of connection, in empathy, in shared effort. They had survived hardships by supporting one another. And yet here, in a place where logic and precision ruled, that same quality, something ordinary to humans, was extraordinary. Throughout the afternoon, other patients began to notice subtle differences in the human volunteers aboard the station. They watched as humans moved gently among the alien caretakers, offering quiet words, simple gestures, a touch of reassurance. Recovery rates across species began to shift. Doctors recorded anomalies, puzzled by the unexpected patterns. Neerath observed silently, her own physiological readings subtly changing when in proximity to Ellie. She felt less tense, more focused, as though the calm that humans carried was contagious. Eli noticed it too. When he laughed softly, when he whispered words of encouragement to another patient, or to Neerath herself, he felt stronger. His body seemed to respond to more than just the machines or the controlled environment. Something about being attentive, about caring, about touching another being, made him more alive than he had felt since the hyperspace transit. By evening, the station's lights dimmed and the artificial sky shifted to the gentle colors of a simulated sunset. Eli lay back against his pillows, exhausted but strangely satisfied. Neerath sat beside him, her posture unchanged, hands folded, eyes soft with an unreadable expression.
You are
Different from the others, Neerath said finally.
Your presence affects your environment in ways that are unexpected.
I have observed. I am still analyzing.
Eli looked at her. Different? I'm just me. He laughed quietly. I don't know if that's a compliment or a problem. It is neither, Neerath said.
It is remarkable.
Eli's hand moved, almost of its own accord, reaching for hers again. When their fingers touched, he felt a quiet reassurance, a steadying warmth. He realized that, for the first time since arriving, he was not afraid. Not of the alien nurses. Not even of himself. Neerath's soft laugh floated through the room, almost imperceptible. A sound that seemed to belong to both her and the station itself. You held my hand, she repeated. And now, I hold yours. Eli smiled. He didn't understand everything, but he felt it. The connection, the presence, the subtle comfort of shared attention. It was enough. It was more than enough. Night passed slowly, filled with soft humming and the occasional check of vitals. Eli's dreams were gentle, fragmented images of Earth, forests, rivers, sunlight filtering through leaves. Humans he loved, friends and family, walked beside him in hazy clarity, and always, Neerath's presence lingered at the edge, comforting, calm, unthreatening. By the next morning, Eli's strength had improved further. He could sit upright without assistance. move his arms, lift his legs slightly. Nereth guided him through each motion, never rushing, never judging. Every small success was acknowledged with a quiet nod, a soft sound, a gentle touch. It became clear to Eli that his recovery was not just physical. His mind was sharpening. Thoughts that had been muddled were now clearer. He could focus on words, on numbers, on the patterns of the station's systems. And through it all, Nereth's presence was a constant. She did not speak unless necessary, but when she did, her words carried weight, care, and subtle warmth. As the day stretched on, Eli began to observe more closely. Other patients, human and non-human alike, seemed to respond to his presence. A Valari patient, shy and withdrawn, smiled faintly when he greeted them. Another alien species, normally anxious under observation, seemed to relax when he offered quiet words of encouragement. It was as though the human capacity for empathy and gentle attention radiated outward, affecting more than just his own recovery. Nereth noticed, too. Her analysis, silent and meticulous, recorded changes she could not fully explain, emotional resonance, subtle physiological shifts, accelerated healing. These were not just anomalies. They were patterns. Humans carried something the station had not accounted for. Eli sat beside Nereth as the artificial sunset deepened.
I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted quietly. I'm just being here.
Talking, laughing, holding hands. I don't know if it matters. Nereth's eyes met his, steady and luminous. It matters more than you realize, she said softly.
Your species has qualities we cannot replicate.
Even with all our technology, all our knowledge, we cannot duplicate what you carry within yourselves. Presence, empathy, healing through attention. Connection. Eli felt a warmth rise in his chest. He realized then that he was no longer just recovering. He was becoming something more than what the machines measured. Something alive, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. As the artificial night fell, Eli reached for Nereth's hand once more. She allowed it. A small, deliberate gesture that felt larger than anything he could name. You held my hand, she whispered, her voice almost lost in the hum of the station.
Yes, Eli said, smiling softly. I did.
And I will, as long as I can. And for the first time in the vast emptiness of space, surrounded by beings he did not fully understand, Ellie Mercer felt truly at home. The station's corridors were quiet, filled with the soft hum of life support systems and the faint pulse of light along the walls. Eli Mercer walked slowly, testing the strength in his legs. Each step was deliberate, careful, but he felt alive in a way he had not since leaving Earth. The faint ache in his muscles reminded him he was recovering, not yet whole. But it was a comforting ache, a sign of progress. Nereth walked beside him, her posture perfectly composed, her movements fluid, almost floating along the corridor. She did not speak immediately, simply watching him with those large, luminous eyes that seemed to notice everything at once. Eli had come to rely on that quiet observation, finding it steadied him even when he felt unsure. You are moving better today, Nereth said softly after a few minutes. Her voice had the same calm musicality, but there was a subtle warmth to it, almost imperceptible. Your coordination improves. Balance is within expected parameters for a human recovering from transit. Eli chuckled quietly. Expected parameters, huh?
Sounds fancy. I'm just trying not to fall on my face.
Nereth tilted her head slightly, the closest she came to amusement.
Your progress exceeds the average human in controlled rehabilitation environments.
That is unusual. Eli paused, resting a hand against the smooth wall.
Unusual good or unusual bad?
Good, Nereth replied immediately. You are adapting faster than data predicts.
You are resilient. Eli nodded, looking down the corridor. His gaze swept over the other wards, visible through wide, transparent panels. Patients of different species moved under careful observation. Many of them were recovering slowly, assisted by the station's advanced medical systems. But something caught his attention. The same subtle pattern he had noticed before. The patients seemed calmer when human volunteers were near. Stress indicators dropped, vital signs stabilized, and even expressions shifted subtly. He turned to Nerith. "You noticed that too, right?" She did not answer immediately, which made Eli uneasy. Then, after a measured pause, she spoke. "Observation indicates a correlation between human presence and accelerated recovery in multiple species.
The mechanism is unknown. It is
Remarkable." Eli smiled faintly.
I never thought I'd be remarkable for just being alive. Nerith's eyes met his, steady and unwavering. Your species carries qualities beyond physical ability.
Presence, awareness, empathy. The act of engagement itself promotes healing.
We cannot replicate it artificially.
Eli paused. The words hung in the air, like a new truth, startling and exhilarating. So, just being here matters? Not the machines? Not the medicines? Yes, Nerith said softly. The machines aid recovery, but they cannot substitute for connection. Interaction, touch, encouragement. Your species provides something unique, emotional stabilization through presence. That is influencing the station more than anticipated. Ellie shook his head slightly, amazed. That's kind of incredible, isn't it? Humans of all species just sitting beside someone makes them better.
Nerith inclined her head. Yes, it is. Unprecedented in the records we hold.
Even species with advanced cognitive capacities lack the same effect. They reached a room where another patient waited. A member of a species Eli had not yet learned the name of, tall and slender, with skin that shimmered faintly in pale blues and silvers. The patient was pale, eyes tight with discomfort. Medical systems monitored its vitals, but nothing was stabilizing.
Try to speak, Nerith instructed quietly. Introduce yourself.
Offer reassurance. Eli nodded, feeling a nervous weight in his chest. He had no idea if this would work. The patient stared at him with wide eyes, uncertain and tense. Eli swallowed and offered the softest smile he could manage.
"Hi," he said gently. "I'm Eli."
You're safe. I'm here with you.
The patient's shoulders twitched, and its breathing slowed slightly. It looked at him, really looked, and for a moment, fear seemed to ebb. Eli reached out carefully, hovering his hand above the patient's arm. The motion was slow and deliberate. The patient hesitated. Then, as if following instinct, it allowed Eli to touch its hand lightly. Nerith watched closely. "Interesting," she murmured. "Physical connection accepted. Effect on vitals stabilizing." Eli kept his hand there, breathing slowly, speaking softly. Over the next several minutes, he watched as the patient's body began to respond. Heart rate settled, color returned to its skin. Tension eased from its shoulders. When Eli finally withdrew his hand, the patient blinked and offered a faint, hesitant smile. A small, human-like gesture that Eli recognized as trust.
That
worked, Eli whispered, staring in disbelief. I actually helped.
Nerith inclined her head.
It is consistent with prior observations. Human engagement produces measurable effects in multiple species.
The act of presence stabilizes neurological and emotional responses. Ellie let out a quiet laugh. I can't believe it. Just sitting with someone, holding their hand. That's enough? Nerith's eyes softened. It is enough. You are living proof that some aspects of survival and recovery are not governed by technology, data, or physiology alone. There is a human quality that transcends all of that. For the rest of the afternoon, Eli moved between rooms, guided by Nerith. Each time, the results were subtle but undeniable. Patients calmed, vitals stabilized, and in some cases, laughter even emerged. A sound that was rare aboard the station. Aliens who had rarely smiled began to relax, sharing quiet, hesitant moments of trust with humans they did not fully understand. Eli found himself exhausted by the end of the day, muscles sore but mind alive with new understanding. He had never imagined that something so simple, presence, attention, a gentle touch, could be revolutionary. Yet here, in the middle of an alien medical station, humans were quietly rewriting the rules. Nerith followed him back to his room, her steps measured. Silent, she watched as he settled back onto his bed, muscles finally letting him rest fully. "You have exceeded expectations again," she said quietly, taking her seat beside him. Her hand hovered just above his, not touching but close enough that he could feel her presence.
Your capacity to influence others through attention and empathy is
unprecedented. Eli looked at her, tired but smiling.
I don't know what to say.
I'm just me. You are more than that, Nerith replied. You are the example of qualities we cannot synthesize. We can build machines to heal the body.
We can design algorithms to monitor and predict recovery.
But your presence, it heals the mind, the spirit, the nervous system in ways we cannot replicate. That is extraordinary. Eli let the words settle in. They made him feel both small and enormous at the same time. Small because he had never imagined such impact. Enormous because somehow, simply being himself, simply existing as a human, he could do things no machine, no alien technology could. The night stretched over the station. Lights dimmed, soft pulses marking time. Eli lay back against his pillows, Nerith beside him. He reached out instinctively, placing his hand lightly over hers.
You held my hand, she said softly. Yes, Eli replied, his voice quiet, tired but satisfied.
And I will, as long as I can. For the first time, Eli understood something fundamental. Humanity had survived, not because of strength, speed, or technology alone. Humans had survived because they could connect, because they could offer presence, care, and reassurance when others could not. That simple act, attention, touch, empathy, was more powerful than he had ever imagined. In the quiet of the night, the station seemed to breathe with him. Patients slept more peacefully. Aliens who had been anxious moved with calm certainty. Even the machines, for all their logic, seemed to hum more steadily, as if acknowledging something beyond computation. Eli's thoughts drifted to Earth, to the forests, rivers, and oceans, to the people he loved, the friends and family who had survived by holding one another through hardships. And now, far from home, he realized that same truth was manifesting in the stars. Humans carried a light inside them, a quiet strength, a power to heal that transcended species, culture, and technology. By morning, Eli could walk steadily, lift objects with small strength, and speak with confidence. The station's logs noted his progress, but more interestingly, they noted the change in the patients around him. His influence radiated subtly, reshaping recovery in ways that even Nerith struggled to explain fully. As he prepared for another day, Eli smiled at her.
I think I'm starting to understand. We humans, we carry something special.
Something simple, but powerful. Nerith's eyes met his, steady and luminous. Yes. And now, you carry it here, among us. Your presence shapes this environment more than you realize. That is remarkable. That is human. Eli laughed softly, shaking his head. I never thought just being alive could be this important. But maybe it's the most important thing. And as he stepped forward into the day, hand brushing lightly against Nerith's, he felt a quiet certainty. Humanity was not the strongest, the fastest, or the most intelligent species in the galaxy, but it was the species that could endure, connect, and heal in ways no one else could. And in that simple, unassuming power lay something far greater than any weapon, machine, or alien advancement: the light of being human. Eli Mercer woke to a soft, golden glow filtering through the walls of his room. The station's light had changed with the cycle, imitating dawn even though he knew real sunrises were far away. He stretched slowly, muscles firm enough now to allow smooth movement, and for the first time felt a kind of strength he had not known since before the hyperspace transit. Nerith sat beside him, hands folded, eyes bright and calm as always. But today there was something different in her gaze. It was softer, warmer, tinged with what Eli thought might be admiration. "You are ready?" she said simply. Eli blinked.
To interact with the larger station. To see your influence extend beyond your room.
To assist where needed. He nodded, suddenly aware of the responsibility that had quietly settled onto his shoulders. The past days had been about recovery, about healing himself, but now, he realized, it was about more than that. His presence could make a difference, not just to him, but to others who were struggling. As he stepped into the corridor, Nerith by his side, he noticed the subtle changes across the station. Patients of different species moved more confidently. Their expressions, once tight with worry, now held traces of calm, even faint smiles. Machines and systems still monitored vitals, but the tension in the air had softened. The station felt lighter, more alive. Eli paused near a window panel, looking out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly, cold and dark. But he felt no fear. Not here. Not now. Humanity's light, he realized, was not in the sky. It was inside them, in the small acts of care, in attention, in presence. That light had reached this station, touching beings who had never known it. Their first assignment that morning took them to a rehabilitation ward. A group of young aliens from multiple species were recovering from different ailments. Machines hummed softly, tracking progress. Some of the patients were nervous, others lethargic, most simply wary of humans. Eli moved quietly among them, speaking softly, letting his eyes meet theirs. "Hello," he said gently, his voice carrying a warmth that no machine could produce.
I'm Eli. You're safe here.
You are not alone. Some of the younger patients flinched at first, unsure of this strange human.
But he moved slowly, calmly, never forcing contact, simply offering his presence. One by one, the tension in their bodies began to ease. Their breathing slowed, muscles relaxed, eyes brightened. Nerith observed quietly, taking careful notes.
Yeah. Whoa.
"Interesting," she murmured, almost to herself. Human influence beyond initial expectations. Emotional resonance stabilizes multiple species simultaneously. Eli smiled faintly. "It's not magic," he said. "It's just paying attention, being there, listening, sharing a moment." Throughout the morning, Eli continued this work, moving between rooms, offering quiet words, soft laughter, and careful gestures of reassurance. Patients responded in ways the station's data could not fully explain. Nervous movements slowed. Color returned to skin. Eyes focused with clarity. Even species that had never smiled before offered faint, hesitant expressions. Other medical staff began to notice. Valari nurses paused, observing Eli interact. At first, there was hesitation. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, illogical by their standards, but as hours passed, they could not deny the effects. Stress markers dropped. Vitals stabilized faster. Recovery accelerated. Humans, they realized, carried something they could not quantify, but that clearly mattered. By midday, Eli was exhausted but determined. His body was stronger than ever, but it was his mind that felt the most alive. Every interaction, every small connection reminded him that survival was more than endurance. Survival was care, attention, empathy. Humans had always known it. Now, across the stars, others were beginning to learn it too. One patient, a tall, luminous-skinned alien, hesitated when Eli approached. Its eyes darted to the monitors, to the Valerie nurse, and back to him. Eli crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to its level without forcing intimacy. "Hello," he said softly. "I'm here with you. You're safe. I'll stay until you're ready." The alien's shoulders relaxed almost imperceptibly. It allowed Eli's hand to hover close, not touching, just feeling the warmth nearby. The subtle connection, the quiet acknowledgement, was enough. Within minutes, its breathing slowed, tension eased, and when it spoke, the words were soft and trembling. "Thank you." Eli smiled, though it was a tired, genuine smile. "You're welcome," he said. "That's what we're here for, to be with each other, even in small ways." Nerith watched silently, recording each detail. Her own readings reflected subtle changes, stress decreasing, heart rate calming, cognitive patterns shifting. She was fascinated, unable to replicate the effect in simulations or with artificial interfaces. Humans were different, and in a way, superior in something no technology could match. As the day continued, Eli's influence became more pronounced. He moved from ward to ward, his presence stabilizing patients, calming anxious staff, and even inspiring subtle shifts in alien interactions. Conversations became softer. Laughter appeared where there had been none, and the station itself seemed to breathe with a gentler rhythm. By evening, Ellie returned to his room, weary but satisfied. Nereth was there, seated quietly, hand hovering near his. He reached for it instinctively, allowing the contact to ground him.
"You held my hand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Eli replied, smiling faintly.
"And I always will, as long as I can." Nereth inclined her head.
Your presence has altered this station. Recovery, emotional balance, and social interactions have improved markedly.
Other species observe and learn. Your species teaches without intention, simply by being. Eli thought of Earth, of the countless small gestures that had kept his family and friends alive in times of hardship. Humans had survived because they connected, because they cared, because they did not endure alone. That same principle was now unfolding here, across alien lives, across vast distances of space. "You mean, humans are healing more than just themselves?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Nerith replied. "Your kind spreads resilience through attention, empathy, and presence. That is extraordinary." Eli felt a swell of quiet pride. He had never considered himself remarkable, yet here he was, embodying the very qualities that defined humanity. It was not technology, not weapons, not intellect that made humans special. It was the ability to be present, to care, to share strength silently, invisibly, across barriers of species and culture. The night deepened, the artificial sky now filled with stars, simulated yet eerily beautiful. Eli lay back, Nerith beside him. He reflected on the past days, the recovery, the subtle influence, the moments of shared connection, and he understood something fundamental. Humans were not the fastest, the strongest, or the most intelligent species, but they carried something no other species had. A quiet humility settled over him. Yet with that humility came a sense of power, of potential. Humanity's greatest strength was not dominance. It was presence, connection, the ability to bring calm, hope, and resilience to others simply by being. Nerith's hand brushed lightly against his. "You have changed more than your own condition," she said softly. "You have changed this environment. You have taught us what presence means." Ellie smiled faintly.
I didn't teach anything.
I just stayed, listened, held hands, laughed a little.
That is enough, Nerith replied. It has always been enough for your species.
And it is enough for others to learn, to emulate, to value. You are proof that care transcends technology, culture, and species. Eli's mind drifted, thinking of Earth and the countless small gestures that had carried humans through crises, and he realized that he was living the same principle now. In the middle of a galaxy he had once thought cold and indifferent, humans were spreading hope in quiet ways, their strength not measured in power, but in subtle influence, in healing, in the courage to stay beside another being in silence, in laughter, in small gestures of attention. The next morning, the station's command log noted something remarkable. The humans aboard had influenced recovery rates across multiple species, improved emotional stability, and fostered trust that had been impossible to simulate. Other stations, upon reviewing the data, began requesting human volunteers for similar roles. Humans were not needed as soldiers, engineers, or diplomats. They were needed to be present, to care, to heal. Eli stood at the observation deck with Nerith, gazing out at the galaxy. Ships passed silently, planets shimmered in the distance, and the vastness of space stretched infinitely. Yet Eli felt calm. His species had a place here, a purpose that went beyond survival, beyond technology, beyond knowledge. Their value was in the human way, to hold hands, to stay, to care, to share. Nerith looked at him. Your species carries a power unlike any other. The galaxy will recognize it in time. You are a beacon, not of destruction, but of resilience, presence, and hope. Eli reached for her hand, a simple gesture. I guess that's all any of us really need to do. Just be there. You have always understood, Nerith said, her voice carrying warmth that words alone could not express. You have always lived it, and now you teach it without trying. And as the station continued its quiet hum, Eli Mercer held the hand of an alien nurse, smiling softly. Across the galaxy, humans were leaving their mark. Not in conquest, not in technology, not in warfare, but in presence, in care, and the quiet, extraordinary power of simply being human. And that, he realized, was more than enough.